You have big dreams of losing weight and creating a healthy, joyful life. But you find yourself craving sugar, caught up in what the scale says, and diet hopping. Dieting is the old way of losing weight. And the good news is I'm going to give you a new way of eating so you can ditch diets for good and build a healthy relationship with real food. My name is Megan Olson, certified nutrition practitioner, creator of Skinny Fitalicious, and your host of the Dish on Diets show.
Hello, friends. Today we're discussing calorie deficits and why you're not losing weight in a calorie deficit. You feel like you're doing everything right, but nothing is happening. Nothing is working. I hear this from women a lot, even from some of my clients. And the women that reach out to me and message me and tell me that their calorie deficit isn't working, or they comment on my videos on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, they'll comment on my videos and say, I did a calorie deficit, but it never worked. And these women are very frustrated. So let's talk about it. Let's discuss the reasons why you might not be seeing fat loss despite being in a calorie deficit. There's actually a lot of nuances to this topic, and it's not really that simple because it's not always a math equation with calories in, calories out. And it's not always as easy as just taking an online calculation and assuming that that number is going to be a deficit for your body. So let's dig into this topic to help you figure out what might be going on that's keeping you stuck. Now, first, I want to remind you that the only way the human body actually loses body fat is from an energy deficit. There are many women who are in complete denial about this that I speak to. If you are somebody who thinks an energy deficit is not real and it's not how the human body loses body fat, then you do not believe in things like gravitational pull. Calorie deficits, energy deficits, it is so fundamentally a thing. Scientifically, we know absolutely 100% it is a thing, just like gravitational pull. So if you don't believe in calorie deficits, you must think that you can fly. Because that is just how our bodies operate. If somebody has lost weight, it is because they were in an energy deficit. So if you started fasting and lost weight, it was not fasting that caused the weight loss. It was because fasting helped you get into an energy deficit. If you cut carbs and lost weight, it was not the carbs that caused the weight loss. It was the reduction of your calories that created an energy deficit. If you drank 2 shakes a day and lost weight, it was not the shakes that caused your weight loss. It was the reduction of calories that created an energy deficit from just drinking those shakes. So no matter how you ate, no matter what diet you followed, the only way the human body loses body fat is through an energy deficit. Many women are in denial about this scientific fact. Energy deficits have literally been proven in research for decades. And no, carbs don't make you fat, despite what a lot of people are saying. And remember, a lot of people are saying these things for clicks and likes to get you to buy whatever supplement that they are sharing online. Carbs don't make you fat. Sugar doesn't make you fat. This has been debunked with research over and over again. It's consuming more energy than the energy your body requires that leads to excess weight over time. Now, many things impact how effectively your body is burning and utilizing energy. Many midlife women are just not burning that much energy. And one reason is sitting. Your steps are just too low. So your body doesn't need much energy when your steps are like 3,000 steps a day, maybe even 5,000 steps a day. That's not that much. You're not really moving very much. And another major reason for midlife women is lack of muscle mass. We lose muscle mass starting around the age of 30. And if you're not doing something about it, you're losing it. So it's really easy by the time you're 50 to suddenly be like, how did I gain all this weight? Lack of muscle mass, because lack of muscle mass means you are burning way fewer calories. And if you're a midlife woman who has put on body fat, these are two really big reasons why you have put on body fat in midlife. And I do see it quite often with my clients. So now let's discuss why you might not be losing weight despite being in a calorie deficit. The first reason is one I see often with clients. And the reason is you are in denial about your calorie intake. And this might be really hard to hear. But no, it comes from a place of love to help you. As somebody who has worked for 11 years with over 1,000 clients at this point, the strangest thing I have seen women doing is acting confused why they are not losing weight when they are really not executing the plan. And they're not being honest with themselves. So let's say your calorie deficit target is 1,500 calories, as an example. That's what you're targeting for your deficit. But your average calories, when you do the math, what you consumed on average for the last 3 months was 1,650 calories. The reason you are not losing weight is because your consumed calories are 1,650, not 1,500. It's very simple. You're not executing the plan. You're still over your calories. And that's why you're not losing weight. Or maybe you're executing the plan, but your steps are still too low because steps are part of a deficit. And like I said, I've seen this with quite a few clients in my 11 years of being a nutritionist who are just kind of confused, like why they are not losing weight. And they are in complete denial that they're still over their calorie target. But they have this expectation that they should be losing weight. It is quite a fascinating psychological phenomenon I have observed. I will have to repeat to some of my clients over and over and over and again in all their appointments over and over again. I have to keep repeating it. You're not executing the plan. You're not doing what you need to be doing. You're way above your calories. That's why you're not seeing results. It's like there's this denial. You have to be executing to the plan if you want the results that you are expecting. And listen, I get it. It's hard being in a deficit, so I'm not beating anybody up here. Remember, this comes from a place of love to help you. But you are going to have to make some short-term sacrifices to reach any goal, whether it's weight loss or something else. And my observation as a weight coach is that some women are kind of like giving it a C or D effort and expecting amazing results. When you are in a deficit, you do have to be much more alert to what you are doing, and you need to treat it like an actual goal and not be kind of wishy-washy with it. That means you got to be honest with yourself. If you're not hitting your calorie numbers or you're going off plan, like every time your grandkids come in town and every vacation and you got all these things going on and dinners out, then you got to be honest with yourself. If you are not hitting your calorie numbers that you're targeting in your deficit, you can't act confused why you're not seeing results. You must be honest with yourself. This is doing such a big disservice to yourself to not be honest about what you are doing and just kind of gazing over it. With all my clients, we track all their data in a share file so we can see what they're doing. And even then, I have a lot of clients who will literally see the data with their eyes, but are still confused why they're not seeing results, despite them eating above their calorie deficit. It really is quite an odd thing I have observed multiple times in my 11 years of doing this. It's like there's this mental disconnect. You are consuming 1,650 calories. Just because your target is 1,500 doesn't mean you're going to lose weight because you're targeting 1,500. A target means nothing if that's not what you're actually eating in reality, because you're eating above your target. So the first reason you may not be losing weight in a calorie deficit is because you're eating above your target calories. And you have to be honest with yourself about that. And I get it. That's not an easy one to do, because that one is on you and you can't blame anyone else. You have to work on dialing certain things in and trying to be in a deficit all of the time, not just sometimes, when it's convenient. Every time there's a trip or your grandkids come or your kids come or there's an event and you go off plan, this is making it harder. So you have to be honest. Second reason your calorie deficit is not working is because your calorie number is not, in fact, a calorie deficit for your body. A lot of people go to an online calculator or use the recommended calories in some app. And that number may not be a calorie deficit for your body. And I suspect a lot of the comments and messages I get from women on social media, this is the problem. They're taking some random number from somewhere, and that number says it should be a deficit for them, and then they just assume it's a deficit for them, and then it doesn't work. Listen, your body may be burning a lot fewer calories than what that recommendation is. That is a very normal thing. That is going to happen. That's why you start with the number, and then you got to mess around and you got to track some data for a while. It's not a guarantee that that number you pick on the internet or on some app is going to work for you, because that thing doesn't know your body, right? And then on top of it, maybe you are somebody who has a medical condition like PCOS, insulin resistance, hypothyroidism. And with those particular conditions, individuals are generally burning fewer calories than the online calculator recommendations. But you're not going to know that until you start messing around and working on this stuff. You know, a calorie deficit still applies even if you have those kind of conditions. Even if your hormones are tanking, even if you're in menopause, calorie deficit still applies. The only way you are physically alive and breathing is because your body is utilizing energy to keep your organs functioning. So even with those type of medical condition, energy balance still applies. And do you know what the best solution for those particular conditions are? Insulin resistance, PCOS, hypothyroidism. It's building muscle, bringing your steps up to about 10,000 steps a day or more. Being in a calorie deficit, it's the same basic boring stuff that applies to everybody in the world. It still applies to you, but you may be burning very little energy in those conditions, maybe making it a little bit harder for you to lose weight. Not impossible, just a bit harder. But the more consistent you become with doing these habits, the boring basic stuff over and over and over again for years and years and years, you will improve how your metabolism functions and how much energy your body utilizes. And remember, you should be doing these basic boring things outside of the calorie deficit anyways to stay out of a nursing home, because they're good for you. Nobody wants to be in a nursing home, right? We need to be doing these things anyways, whether or not we're trying to lose weight. So a number you get online from an app may not be a calorie deficit for you, but it is a starting point for you to collect data, and then you adjust your number based on what you're seeing with the data. I mean, there is trial and error in the process of losing weight. That is totally normal. Collect your data, review the data, and adjust over time as you need to. Okay? The third reason your calorie deficit may not be working is because your steps are too low. Steps are part of a calorie deficit. Let's say you are nailing your nutrition, but nothing's happening. You're not losing any body fat. Go check your steps. Steps must come up in a calorie deficit. Steps are just your daily movement. So going to the gym and exercising for 30 minutes, then sitting on your butt all day long is not moving. You're not moving. Exercise and movement are two separate things when it comes to total daily energy expenditure. Exercise is only 5% of your total daily energy expenditure versus movement, which is 20% of your total daily energy expenditure. So if you are in a calorie deficit, your steps need to come up from where you are right now. And this is something a lot of women miss. And it's really important because steps are part of your deficit. Okay? Fourth reason your calorie deficit is not working is because you're only going by the scale and not taking measurements. I feel like I'm a broken record on this one. Guys, fat loss is not weight loss. Anyone can go to the bathroom and lose weight. That is not losing body fat. As a woman, your body fat percentage goal should be to get somewhere between 20 to 25% body fat percentage. And that may take years for you to work on. But that is what you need to focus on, not the scale number. A high body fat percentage means more inflammation, more risk for chronic disease, more risk for prediabetes, more risk for cardiovascular disease. You can lose weight on the scale and still be skinny fat with a high body fat percentage. I have clients who work with me who are skinny fat. And what you must accept as a midlife woman is that the scale does not work the same way as when you were younger. When you were younger, you had more muscle. So you would start a diet and start losing scale weight right away. Now as a midlife woman, you begin strength training, you begin eating adequate protein, you begin working on your steps and a slight calorie deficit, and the scale might stay the same for a long time. But if your measurements are going down, you are in fact losing body fat. You are under muscled, and that is why the scale is not going down initially. It may be months, in fact, before the scale starts to even go down for you. That is normal. And I have seen that with multiple client cases where this has happened. My client, Robin, who was on this podcast in episode 118, she lost 4 pant sizes and her scale weight stayed the same number. Wait for it. It stayed the same number for 18 months. She dropped 4 pant sizes. And then after the 18 months, that's when she dropped 20 pounds on the scale. It was like, kind of like almost within a month, all of a sudden the 20 pounds went swoosh off. After 18 months, but she lost 4 pant sizes. Imagine if we had not been taking measurements and only looked at the scale for progress. It happens all the time. It actually recently happened with another client. This client went from a size 14 to a size 10, and her scale weight, it stayed exactly the same number. It's still the same number. And this client told me, Megan, in the past, I would have already given up because I would have been so ticked off thinking the scale isn't moving, so why should I bother continuing? She said she realizes she was looking at the wrong data. Yeah, that's what most women are doing. You're looking at the wrong data, or you're not taking all the data into account. You're just looking at the scale to measure your progress. You have to take measurements. My client, Carrie, who was also on this podcast in episode 126, same thing happened to her. She's a menopausal client. Her first deficit, she lost a bunch of inches, but her scale weight stayed the same number. And it wasn't until her second deficit that her scale number finally changed. She talks about it in that podcast episode. But the bottom line is the scale just does not work the same way anymore for midlife women because so many women in midlife are under-muscled. And as women get older, they begin losing muscle mass and their body composition begins to shift, especially during perimenopause. You start storing more body fat as a result of some fluctuating hormones. Women also tend to change their behaviors during perimenopause and menopause. They start to consume more calories and alcohol due to sleep deprivation, due to stress, due to emotions and mood. And so now they have a higher body fat percentage and a lower muscle mass percentage. That means when you start working on these habits, remember that you're supposed to be doing to stay out of a nursing home, right? When you start working on these habits, you're going to gain some muscle. Muscle weighs something on the scale. So maybe you might think your calorie deficit isn't working because you're not taking measurements. That's something to look into if you think your calorie deficit isn't working. The fifth reason your calorie deficit may not be working is you are inaccurately tracking calories. Guys, there has been a ton of research done on this topic, and it shows that people underreport their calories up to 50%. That's a lot. So if your calorie deficit is legitimately not working and you've been doing it for 2 or 3 months and you're taking measurements, audit your tracking. Audit your behaviors. Are you using a food scale and weighing foods in grams or ounces to track them in your app? If you are using measuring cups, if you're using measuring spoons, your calories are not accurate. You can only get away with using measuring cups and measuring spoons if it's working. If it's not working, you got to put stuff on a food scale and everything's got to go on it. Are you also counting the extra bites, licks, and taste you put in your mouth? If you're taking care of little ones, really pay attention to the BLTs. It's easy to make a peanut butter sandwich for a child and lick the peanut butter off the knife and not even realize it. Those are calories. Taking a few chips off your child's plate as you're walking by, or finishing their couple bites of their meal that they left on their plate as you're cleaning up the dishes, all those calories count. Are you counting the oil you cook with? This is a big one so many individuals miss. I actually had a video I posted on social media a few weeks ago about the number of calories in olive oil. And people were arguing with me in the comments that the olive oil didn't count because it gets absorbed by the pan, not the food. Yeah, that's not true. The food absorbs the oil. So you are consuming those calories. I don't know where people get these crazy ideas that, the oil doesn't get absorbed in the pan. Why are you even putting it in the pan if it gets absorbed by the pan? That's so strange. So people were also arguing with me in the comments that olive oil calories don't count because they're healthy calories. Okay. Well, just because something's healthy doesn't mean it's calorie free. This is why I believe some people are overweight, is because they think because the food is healthy, it's calorie free, but it's not. All foods have calories, healthy or not healthy. So are you counting the oil in your pan? Are you eating out too much? Are you going off plan too much for vacation and travel and visitors and not counting those calories properly, or potentially overeating those calories? I mean, all those type of things can mean that your calories can be really off. Can you travel and eat in a calorie deficit? Absolutely. I lost 80 pounds while being a consultant on the road. The difference is you got to be really aware of what you're doing and what you're eating, and you really have to plan. And you really have to be aware of portion sizes and what you're doing. But are you tracking calories accurately? It's easy to really make silly mistakes with tracking. Sometimes you're copying and pasting a meal, or you're copying and pasting ingredients from the previous day in your app and you forget to adjust the portion size. You just copy it over because you eat the same stuff for breakfast or same stuff for lunch. These are the silly things people do, and then they think their calories are accurate, but their calories are not accurate. So audit your tracking. If you're not seeing results, audit your tracking. Look at your behaviors, look at your tracking, see where there might be some mistakes going on. The sixth reason your calorie deficit may not be working is because you're not consuming balanced meals with enough protein and fiber daily. So you're hungry and likely going over your calories periodically. Listen, you can calorie count all you want, but if hunger is a consistent problem and you are not hitting your protein and fiber consistently, you may find yourself blowing your calorie numbers. You may also be blowing your calorie targets because your deficit number that you're trying to target is way too low. The goal is to always eat as much as you can and still lose body fat. Most women want to go as fast as they can to get it over with, and that's where they trash their metabolism by dropping calories too low and staying too low for too long. You need to learn to eat as much as you can and still lose weight to protect your hormones, to protect your metabolism. Slow progress is the best kind of progress. So please be patient with yourself. Please be patient with your body. You did not put on 10, 20, 30 pounds in 3 or even 6 months, or sometimes not even a year. Sometimes it's a gradual, slow drip over time. So be patient with your body. Be patient with yourself. You will be much more content with just going slow and working the process slowly over time, and you're less likely to regain the weight when you do that. The seventh reason your calorie deficit may not be working is you are eating back your exercise calories. You should always ignore any calories you burn with exercise. It's nearly impossible to accurately know how many calories you're really expending through exercises. And even if you have one of these fancy devices, no, they are not accurate either. Devices are known to be up to 40% inaccurate with their calorie burn numbers. That means you may be overestimating your calories burned, potentially keeping you at maintenance. So make sure you're not eating back your exercise calories. The eighth reason why you are in a calorie deficit and you may not be losing weight is your all or nothing mindset and poor relationship with food. Let's say you're good, quote unquote, with your nutrition and exercise during the week, but then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you blow your plan. That means you are off plan about 40% of the time if you're doing that. And that is not actually a calorie deficit problem. That is a relationship with food problem, because likely you are not including certain foods during the week, and then the weekend comes and you just go crazy and overeat them. You're either all on plan or you're all off plan. And you have probably rules around certain foods you can have and certain foods you can't have. And so the weekend comes and it's like a party, and then all of a sudden all the foods that you can't have during the week, you suddenly can. So if you have this situation where you struggle with right or wrong foods, good or bad foods, and you have all this kind of all or nothing mindset around nutrition and your exercise habits, then you should not be tracking calories or trying to be in a calorie deficit right now. You need to stop and fix your relationship with food and work on your behavior patterns, your all or nothing mindset, and the patterns driving your on and off with your plan. And that is something that's hard for a lot of people to hear, because a lot of people are like, no, I want to focus on weight loss. I need to lose weight. But I've said this multiple times. You need a solid foundation to your house, because you can't lose weight sustainably and keep it off if you don't have a solid foundation to your house first. Think about it. If you built a house and you didn't have a solid foundation, the house is going to fall down. You might lose weight temporarily, but it's all going to come back. So there are cracks in your foundation if you have a bad relationship with food, if you have an all or nothing mindset, a perfectionist mindset. Those are cracks in your foundation. Those need to be dealt with. Inner work always has to come before the outer work. I spoke about this in my last podcast episode, 139, the signs of you being on a bad diet. That's one of the signs. You're not working on your relationship with food. You're not working on your all or nothing mindset. You cannot diet and lose weight sustainably and keep it off until you're 85 plus years old if you have those cracks in your foundation. I guarantee you will find yourself calorie counting your way to nowhere if you have a poor relationship with food, if you restrict foods too much, you have a perfectionist mindset, an all or nothing mindset. I see both of these things with most of my clients, and we have to do a lot of coaching on them before we can ever get to calories or the weight loss part. I think a lot of women think that they will have a better relationship with food after they lose weight, or they will work on this all or nothing mindset and behavior stuff after they lose weight. But that's backwards. You must work on that before you lose weight. Calorie counting, trying to be in a deficit, will just set you up for disordered eating patterns and exasperating these issues for you more. Your struggle with food will actually increase and get greater, and your behavior patterns will get stronger around your all or nothing. So you have to address these things first. Moving on. The 9th reason your calorie deficit is not working is lack of muscle. Think of it as priming your house before painting your house. Fat loss will go a lot easier if you prime your house, because if you are under-muscled, fat loss will be painfully slow. You need a lot more muscle than you realize. And I think some women think they have some muscle, but respectfully, they don't have enough. And that's where I have to discuss with clients, especially ones who have less than 20 pounds to lose, to encourage them to focus more on building strength and getting stronger versus just chasing fat loss all the time. Because building strength and doing hypertrophy strength training, and think of it as trying to become a bodybuilder, like you're lifting like as if you were trying to become a bodybuilder. That's how I like to put it. You're not going to become a bodybuilder because you would have to eat a great amount of food to actually do that, but you're lifting with that kind of intent for like a year or more, because it will really help your metabolism burn more energy and become more efficient with how it's burning energy. So that way a deficit isn't so painfully slow and giving you minimal results. And I understand it's a hard thing to accept when you don't feel good in your body and you want to lose weight. But listen, losing body fat is a lot easier when you have more muscle on your frame. And remember, you are going to lose some muscle always when you lose body fat in a calorie deficit. That's just part of the deal. So this is another reason why it's not smart to be dieting a lot or be in a reduced calorie state a lot, because you're going to lose more muscle, not retain it. So think about putting more muscle on your frame. And remember, this is something you should be doing anyways to stay out of a nursing home, to age well and be independent. Okay, The 10th and final reason your calorie deficit is not working for you, and this applies to only a small number of people, and it is metabolic adaptation. This means when you consistently eat fewer calories, your body can slow down your metabolism as a survival mechanism, burning fewer calories at rest and during activity. This is why we don't drop calories too low. We don't stay in deficits forever. We don't do deficits and diet a lot. This is why taking diet breaks and hanging out in your real maintenance is really important. Your body has this survival mechanism to slow down your metabolism when calories are being restricted. Your body cares about keeping you alive. That's always its number one priority. Your body's priority is not making you thin. It's just not. It's keeping you alive. And I have seen several clients in my 11 years of doing this in metabolic adaptation who have worked with me. And quite a few of them came from the Optavia diet and diets like 800 calorie diet programs. These are crash diets, putting people on very few calories and wrecking their metabolisms. And often people stay on them for quite some time. So then their metabolism adapts, making it very easy for them to regain weight because your body has created essentially a new maintenance at some crazy low calorie number. And this is why dieting all the time is not smart, and neither is crash dieting and going really fast and dropping your calories really low. For the clients I have worked with in this area, they have had to spend a year or more repairing their metabolisms and rebuilding muscle mass because they lost a significant amount of muscle mass when they crash dieted. And that meant weight loss had to be put on hold, which for those clients was a mental hurdle we had to do a lot of coaching around. But metabolic adaptation is not very common. For the majority of you listening, if you are not seeing results in a calorie deficit, is more likely one of the other 9 reasons I mentioned today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of today's podcast, there's a lot of nuances around calorie deficit. It's not as simple and straightforward as getting a number and just executing to that number. There's always more nuance and context and details that need to be considered. And the big thing I would say is be honest with yourself. Look objectively at all of your data. Get into problem solving mode, because if your measurements are not going down and it's been 2 or 3 months of you doing everything right and you are auditing how you're tracking and you know that you're tracking things properly, then look at your data. Because the bottom line is, if you are not losing body fat, you are not in a calorie deficit for your body. Something is off. Something needs to be adjusted somewhere. Maybe it's your calorie number. Maybe it's actually your steps. Maybe you need to work more on building muscle. Maybe you're just not letting yourself see that you're actually over-consuming calories. So over the last 3 months, look at what you've consumed on average. Maybe you are targeting 1,500 calories, and like the example I gave earlier, maybe you're really consuming 1,650 on average, and you're just not allowing yourself to see it. Look at your data. Your job is to figure out why you are not losing weight in a calorie deficit, because if you're not, you are not actually in a deficit and something is off. So you have to figure out what's off to get yourself into that deficit. I hope that helps. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, you have to come check out my free weight loss class. It's the 5 steps to lasting weight loss, how hormones impact weight loss, and the truth about lasting weight loss without relying on willpower, workouts, or deprivation. Click the link in the show notes to watch that free class today. And if you are a woman over 35 with 20 to 50 or more pounds to lose, schedule a free weight loss breakthrough session with me after you watch that class, and let's talk about your 20 to 50 or more pound weight loss plan.